Welcome back to another episode of the Valley of Spirits. In this episode, you're just going to have me, your host, Nick. Jordan had some family matters that came up, but tonight I am joining you from the Shrine of the Two Moons in the Valley of the Eternal Blossoms. The drinks have been flowing, and the music is out of Azeroth. And yeah, you guessed it, there's going to be some cheese in this episode because Jordan cannot stop me from doing bad jokes now. Today, we are focusing a bit on the player versus environment side of the house. We have Mythic Nerub-ar Palace DPS rankings and some up-and-coming class tunings. But let's kick this week off the way we always do. I pretty much stuck to doing Mythics with a longtime friend and guild member. We even spent some time in hardcore, about 5 hours to be exact. Ended up getting to level 10 on some new characters, which I am going to start turning that into another hardcore series on our YouTube channel. Currently, we only have the priest going right now, which I believe just hit 11 or 12. I can't remember what I did last week. But that is moving along, and you can always check that out on our YouTube. We may or may not be moving to a new area in this next coming episode that will go out this Friday at time of recording. But that's enough about my week. Let's move on to what we have coming up for all of World of Warcraft. So what we have coming up is Time Walking Dungeons are going to continue, PvP Brawl Shadowpan Showdown is beginning, and Pet Battle Bonus Event is happening. It's going to be a fun-filled week for everybody, and looks like everybody has an avenue to play with. I'm sure also that everybody is totally excited for the DPS charts, because everybody loves the numbers, and when their class is bad, they love them even more. Not really, nobody likes that. That's horrible. Anyway, evokers and augmentation evokers and fire mages, you're gonna not like this part of the episode. You can turn it off now. You're gonna like the episode when it comes back to the class tunings though, because these DPS changes do have an effect on what Blizzard's doing. So, the augmentation evokers and fire mages, sadly, you're on the bottom rung for the 95th percentile and the overall damage for both DPS in general and boss specific. But this does come with a huge disclaimer. Take note, everybody, that these are incomplete pictures of true balancing of DPS. This is because specs considered underpowered are generally underplayed and will appear weaker than they are. This happens when performance-based players will play the stronger classes, creating a gap between those classes and the weaker ones. But with that disclaimer out of the way, let's get down to these rankings. Our top 5 start with Enhancement Shaman, go figure, at the top for another week. We do move to second place with Frost Mage, coming up 5 places. In third, we have Survival Hunter, moving up a single place on our charts. Fourth is Fury Warrior, also moving up a single place, and Subtlety Rogue bringing up the rear with the biggest moves with 7 places going up. And moving on to who actually has been the biggest mover, speaking of Subtlety Rogue, which is the biggest one, Frost Mage and Elemental Shaman have both moved up 5 places to 2nd and 8th respectively, and our last one is Balanced Druid, moving up 4 places to 18th place. Still not all the way up, but you're doing better. Our biggest losers, sadly, are in the Warlock area. Demonology and Destruction have not been doing good, moving down 9 places to 11th and 6th to 9th, respectively. But don't worry, guys, we do still need all those coffins for when we do Mythics and Dungeons. But let's not sit on the fact that some are doing better and some are doing worse when it comes to the DPS charts. Because in reality, play what you want to. I believe that. And that's fine if you don't. You can also play what's good. Paladin seems to be doing really, really good all the time. It's perfect. Play it all the time. Just because Jordan's not here, I won't shove Paladins down your throats, but play a Paladin. Anyway, let's move forward with these class changes that are coming down the pipeline. I do encourage you to take a look at all of these yourself. There are some PvP ones that are coming out as well, but I'm just going to go over the player versus environment ones. So to start it off, we have Death Knight. The Deathbringer hero talent tree is getting an increase in damage to make it more competitive. Frost is going to get a bit of a change up as Blizzard is increasing the single target damage and reducing some AoE damage. For our Druid players, you are going to be getting an increase across the board, with straight damage increases like Rip, Rake, and Rampant Ferocity damage getting increased by 10%. In addition, Druid of the Claw is getting an increase in critical strike chance by 5%. Resto Druids are not being left out either. Swift Mend Healing is increasing by 25%. Moving on to Hunters, Survival is seeing a decrease in damage. This is due to becoming more dominant in the player versus environment area of Warcraft. Specifically, Blizzard is going to be reducing Merciless Blow and Pack Leader Vicious Hunt by 15 and 20%. Fire Mages, this is where you want to turn the episode back on. Fire Mages are seeing a large amount of damage increases across the board, focusing on Frostfire specifically. With the exception, Frostfire XS Frost, the cooldown reduction is increased by 5 seconds, making a total of 10. Some of these changes have been made to the Frost spec as well. All of these changes are due to Frostfire still underperforming on both specs. Windwalker and Mistweaver Monk are also going to be walking out with damage increases across the board. We're looking at items like Fist of Fury increasing by 20%, and Conduct of Celestial, Strength of Ox, and Flight of the Red Crane getting a 100% increase in damage. These changes are happening due to increase Monk's overall performance in AoE and single target, though they're trying to do this through baseline spell adjustments and also trying to promote build diversity. Paladins, I know I just said Paladins were the best, and I believe that they are. We're not walking away with this in any fun way. Prop Paladin's taken a big hit, I would say, any hit to Paladin's big. It's just, it shouldn't be touched. But Protection Paladin with Divine Inspiration proc chance decreasing by 50%, with additional spells such as Divine Guidance and Forge's Reckoning taking damage decreases. Note these are specifically with Protection Paladin, Holy, and Retribution. You are in the clear because you're perfect, you're beautiful. Moving on to Holy Priest is also going to see a buff across the board because they're only getting one. Holy Word Serenity is getting an additional 25% healing. Rogue, you are going to get Subtlety, is seeing a trade-off in damage. Deathstalker Plague damage is increasing by 45%, while Black Powder damage is getting a reduction of 20%. Overall gaining some damage in this round of class tuning. This is mainly because Deathstalker is underserving the Subtlety rogues compared to Trickster, more so in AoE instances specifically. These changes to Subtlety are to provide a more comparative choice in the hero talents. For Shaman, you're seeing everything. Every spec is getting touched for Shaman. To start off, Elemental, we are seeing an overall damage increase on Farseer. Some of these changes are Farseer Chain Lightning from Ancestors is increasing by 30%. Latent Wisdom is going to see an increase in 25%. For Restoration Shamans, you are receiving exactly the same two buffs in your spec. And the last spec, Enhancement, is seeing all Maelstrom weapon spender damage being reduced by 8%. Blizzard stated you guys you've been on the chart for too long. You've been number one too long. Time to go down. Bye-bye. See you later. Paladin should be up there. Just saying. For our last class and our last update we have is going to be with Warrior. Focusing specifically on Colossus Warriors. Blizzard has noticed that has been having a problem with resilience, and taking note in that, the main focus is arms and protection. Mountain of Muscle and Scars will have an additional 2.5% reduction of damage taken, bringing to a total of 5%. Dominance of the Colossus will have enemies damaged by Demolish deal an additional 5% less damage, bringing that total reduction to 10%. Overall, everyone is going to get some increase except for our big losers, which are Protection Paladin and Enhancement Shaman. Sorry guys, myself included. But that is going to wrap it up for this week. I am your host, Nick. Jordan will be back next week. We may or may not have some player versus player, or we'll just have continued technical malfunctions every time he wants to talk about it. Join us in Dornegal on the Mal'Ganis server and look up our guild, the Electric Boogaloo, for some epic adventures. Stay connected with us on our social media. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter by searching the Valley of Spirits podcast. Don't miss an episode. Follow us on Spotify or wherever you find your podcast. Check out our YouTube for additional content like our hardcore playthroughs and lore episodes that are not found on our podcast platforms. And until next time, may your quests be glorious and your loot be plentiful. And as always, for the Horde.